This meeting is being recorded by Ways and Means Committee. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. In accordance with MGL Chapter 30A, Section 20G, no person shall address a meeting of a public body without permission of the chair, and all persons shall, at the request of the chair, be silent. No person shall disrupt the proceedings of a meeting of a public body. If after clear warning from the chair, a person continues to disrupt the proceedings, the chair may order the person to withdraw from the meeting, and if the person does not withdraw, the chair may authorize a constable or other officer to remove the person from the meeting. Roll call of members. Let's see. Councilor Torenzo.
I'm here.
Councilor Golub.
Here.
Okay. Councilor Forgy.
Here.
Councilor Bottomley is not here. And Councilor DeSorger is here. Okay. So next is, wait a minute. Okay. Approval of the minutes from April 27th, May 3rd, May 16th, June 20th, and August 15th. Would anybody like to?
So moved.
Okay, so moved.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion on the minutes? No. Okay. So all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye or raise your hand or both.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Aye.
So those are approved. Next, we're going to have public comment. Does any member of the public wish to comment? And if you do, this is your chance.
I think Stephanie might be having audio.
So Stephanie appears to be having an audio connection. So I'm going to give that a moment, just in case she had something to say.
She's been trying to get on for, she hasn't been able.
Oh. Well, give that a second. And I'm going to give that a second, and just to be kind, with everybody's permission, we'll go on to do public hearing and motions. And is it all right with everyone if that, if
Sure.
by any chance she had something to say, that we give her a moment where there's a connectivity problem? Are you all okay with that? Agreeable?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So,
I don't know if this might work, but I don't know if Stephanie can hear us, but maybe if she can, and it's just her audio coming through to us. But if she wanted to say something, would she be able to hit the raise hand button?
okay.
I don't know.
Usually when it says that, I've never had somebody say that and be able to hear me. I mean, it's possible, but it's unlikely that she can hear us.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
You can have her come in on the phone. We could hear her, and then she could ask the question.
I didn't know that she had anything, but I'm saying this out loud, so this is for total transparency. I happen to know her phone number. So I was just going to send her text in live time and say,
Can you hear us?
okay, because you're supposed to do everything.
And sometimes we've had this issue, and sometimes if they get out and then come back, it seems to work. I don't know why.
Can she hear us? Tell her that.
No, Jenny texts her. Jenny can text her.
I'm saying this just because for transparency, see your audio problem. And then what should I say?
Susie, can you?
She can either dial in on the phone, or she
dial in.
Try.
May dial in, and we'll recognize you if we had anything. May dial in.
She could text you her question.
I don't think you're allowed to do that. But I just wanted to say what I said in a text because it's also supposed to be out there. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next thing, and we'll just hold that in abeyance, I think is the word. Okay, there's public hearing, none, and motions, none. I don't actually know how that works when you dial in. To tell you the truth, Diana, what happens when somebody dials in?
Oh, it's just their phone. They just, instead of.
No, I mean, I know that,
Oh.
but how do they get connected? Well, anyways,
You can dial in to
okay,
the Zoom.
all right.
if you don't.
They show up as a phone number.
Okay, I get it. Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Okay, so now I see Stephanie is actually in.
She is.
Okay, Stephanie Duclos, we saw that you had a little trouble. We held public comment for a moment, just in case you had comments. If you had a comment, you could unmute
Hi,
and say something.
thank
Oh,
you.
Kyle Phelps. Welcome,
You didn't get a
Kyle.
chance to read the agenda, so I'm in listening, and then I'll bring my questions tomorrow to City Council if I have any.
All right, very good.
comments.
Okay, all right,
Thank you.
all right, and welcome to Kyle Phelps. Kyle, we have public comment. If you had anything to say, you can just unmute and say it. Otherwise, we're gonna go on with the meeting. It's okay if you don't have anything to say. Fine.
No
Okay,
pressure.
all right.
Pressure.
Okay, I just like to give everybody the chance because we added that to our meeting. So now, onward, we're going on to the balance sheet, end of the year reporting, general fund grants, revenues, updates, and I think we'll kind of go through this. I'd just sort of like to, I don't know if you have that all in front of you, but we can go through this a little bit.
Got it.
You looked at it. I wrote down some questions, but I'm going to just let anybody else go first if they have any questions, if you had any things, because you know me, I always have a list of questions. So anybody else speak up if they had things?
I can share that I went through all of it and I have lots of little questions
Yes.
like what does this mean and why is this the way that it is? But
Great.
I have so many little questions that I reached out to a couple of people trying to see if I could get questions answered beforehand, but that understandably didn't work. And that's no complaint. I'm just saying that I don't know which ones are important, to be honest. I feel like even after one budget season, I'm still learning this stuff. So I could name my questions, but I am concerned about taking too much time from everyone because there's so many little niggly questions that are more about me just understanding the budget process, I think, and appreciating this session as a way also to prepare for the next time. But so if I could I'd be happy to name questions, but I'd also be happy to have those questions not be answered if they feel like they're just taking way too much time from everyone else.
So may I respond to that? I just think it's really important that we all grasp the whole thing as it's going along. So I'm going to kind of scroll through one at a time. I actually want to make sure that we answer them all because this is my 4th year doing this and probably 12th year listening, but there's still things that I have and we might as well get it because this one that we're looking at tonight is the wrap up. And it's really important because we have these budget meetings where we go over everything about what we can afford. And now we're talking about what we spent. So I am happy to take the time. So I'm going to kind of scroll through a little bit. We'll go down, just scrolling through the budget.
Right.
And I had a list just pop up. If I don't look at the TV waiting room, just yell out, okay? Because it's hard to do both.
And just for Catherine, just, for your edification, I mean, that's what we wanted to do.
This is exactly
what we
wanted
had
to
planned. So don't feel that any question was.
No, I don't see how we can make next year's budget unless we really look at this year's. So I'm sort of scrolling down department by department and just to see who was, I did this one kind of last minute, so I'm going to take a little bit more time on it. I'm going to be totally transparent. I had looked at it through May and didn't see this one until this afternoon. So.
Can I ask a question?
Yep, go right ahead. Yep.
What documents? I went to the year-to-date document first,
yes.
And it took me I was writing down so many niggly questions that I didn't do the same with the year-to-date for June. And I'm realizing I'm having some connectivity. I'm trying to connect to my email to bring that document up. So I just wanted to name that that's happening. And something's happening with my computer that's not letting me in easily. So I'm wondering which document we're starting with. Just so
I am starting with, and not that there was any particular order, it's the one that I have up, not that my choices are better than anyone else's, really.
I did put them in a particular order.
Okay, but I'm looking at this one first, okay?
June
This is
20.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay,
That's
this
the first
I'm
one.
looking at.
Yep, that's the last report.
Yes, and that's what I really wanted, because,
Right.
you know, we talked about things, even when we made a cut to insurance.
Right.
We said, hey, we might be this much, and I think it's important that we then looked and said, were we spot on? And then we'll do the, after that, we'll do the receipts. And I had questions on all kinds of things. So,
So let me just mention,
Go ahead.
as you start to go through, Ginny, so the encumbrances, if you'll notice, and Christine, I know she's asked questions numerous times about encumbrances as you have. So during the year, the encumbrances are created in Munis based on the information that's entered. So if it's a purchase order, if it's a payroll, so if somebody's being paid, they're in an encumbrance. When they leave employment, the encumbrance gets cleared out. So that's how those encumbrances work. At the end of the year in June, the reason that you see encumbrances in that line, the only reason now you see encumbrances there is because we've actually done an end of the year encumbrance, which is if we have an amount that we have already, an item that's been purchased or a service that's been secured through June 30th, but we haven't received an invoice yet as we're going into July. The town accountant will go through all of those and create encumbrances. So that means that, for instance, there's a small one under in assessors, but the first big one you see is in town attorney. And so you'll see that there's an encumbrance for $5,325. That's basically a June bill.
Perfect.
A bill for the end of the year. So I just wanted to be clear about that, why you see all throughout the year, you'll see a lot of encumbrances there.
Right.
But now, obviously, we wouldn't have those because it's the end of the year. But also in other municipalities, they don't necessarily do those encumbrances, like other softwares don't do them. We have the benefit of being able to do it in Munis, which does help us to stay on track with our budgets.
Good.
But I just kind of wanted to give an explanation of why they look different on this report.
That's very helpful. And then next, go ahead, Catherine, please.
Yeah, and this more came up when I was looking at the year-to-date for September 15th. I'm wondering, can you say those categories of expenses that are encumbered again? I was wondering why certain things were encumbered, certain things were not. Is there a standard these categories get encumbered?
So in the report for the new year, the things that get encumbered are things that we can really project through the year. So payroll gets encumbered. So based on the staffing, whenever you enter a purchase order, you're basically like securing funds to purchase something that becomes an encumbrance. There are certain things we don't encumber, like electricity payments, things like that, things that we really don't know what to anticipate throughout the year. We don't create encumbrances for that. So that's generally what you'll see as far as the distinction.
And is payroll always encumbered?
Payroll is always encumbered, yes, based on the staffing. So when I print the report, depending on who's staffed at the time, that's what's encumbered. Anytime somebody leaves or changes position, the encumbrances will change. It depends. So it'll readjust depending on those changes.
Thank you.
Chris, I see you have your hand up, so please go right ahead.
I have. Thank you. So I find personally that encumbering salaries doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I was wondering if this is an accepted practice under Munis, and if the auditors had anything to say about these encumbrances in the audit report.
No, I don't. The auditors have never said anything. I think it's more, I'm not sure that they actually would even see the encumbrances, Counselor Forgy, just because it's more of an operational issue. When we get to the audit, they see fund balances and actual expenditures and revenue. They're not looking at like our munis records. I mean, they do get copies of munis reports and things like that, but they're not interested in that particularly. So we've never gotten any feedback on whether it is a recognized practice. But I do know I went to a training, the financial directors have trainings periodically. And I went to one recently and met the folks in Amherst, Northampton, I think West Springfield, several communities that have munis, and they do all use the encumbrances. It is part of the munis software, and it's part of like the advancement of the software. So municipalities that have Vadar, which is a less expensive software and has less capabilities, don't have encumbrances because the software doesn't allow it. It is a component of the software, munis, that we're using. And that software is very expensive. It's about $150,000 a year. And it takes care of all of our accounting, our tax collection piece, utilities. We use it for purchasing. We have a very stringent purchasing process. We have something that's even more stringent than Mass General Law. Anything over $5,000, you have to enter in a purchase requisition. So that also gets incorporated into the encumbrances. So I hear what you're saying. I think that I think you and I had a conversation about this when I first got here, that I was also kind of wasn't familiar with encumbrances, so it kind of threw me off a bit. And I was questioning we were having some timing issues in releasing the encumbrances when people were leaving. And that's what you had noted, Councilor Forgy, that when you were kind of trying to reconcile some of the budgets, there were things that were still in there after people had left. And I think what I determined is that, it's usually a couple weeks before the person really gets cleaned out of the payroll or moved out of payroll. So it might be a couple more weeks those encumbrances stay, but then they should readjust to the staffing at, whatever the staffing level is. Mm-hmm. So I'm finding them to be extremely useful because I feel that it does give us, you can look at the report in September and with the lines that are encumbered, you can already see, are they going to be over in their payroll? Are they going to be, based on the current staffing, it's not a perfect exact science, but it is something, it's an indicator that helps us a little bit more, I think. If we took them out, if we took the encumbrances out, what I used to do in my prior communities is every month, you print an end of the month report, but then you basically have to consider the next, several months to basically come up with an end of the year number. And so that's what this software does for you.
Okay, I see. And I think you and I, Chris, we've had this discussion because we were looking at things. I see what you're saying. I see both sides of that. However, it sometimes made things look worse than they were. When you're looking at this, almost everyone, I'm looking at, like the treasurers was under 14,000. Town attorney, it looks like there's 26,000 left. Town attorney.
Well, so
okay, go ahead.
I do want to.
No, please go.
Part of the reason why
I'm adding it up, getting ready for the free cash.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, absolutely. No, that is one thing that we do. It helps us to figure out as a free cash. I just wanted to mention for town attorney. So what I do too, I kind of go through and look at these, exactly what you're doing, kind of look at these balances that are remaining when we're looking at next year's budget for health insurance, for debt service, the things that we did reduce. Town attorney, I do want to let you know, and I will take some responsibility for this, but when Danny left, Danny was processing the legal bills And in May and June, she did not process those bills. And then I started processing them, but did not know May and June had not been processed. So I told you June we've encumbered, I believe, but May we still owe. So even though we had that balance left, we do have a prior year bill that I'm gonna ask you to fund. So that means we're gonna close out that 26,000. It's gonna go to free cash. But this year's attorney budget, I'm gonna take out a bill from last year. So we may have to look at this year's budget at some point, not now, but as the year winds, goes forward.
So let's go to the technology department because I have a question there. And yes.
Did you pass the attorney?
I did, so we don't have to pass the attorney, we can stop. I didn't see, just please speak out because we're friends, okay? We're all friends here. That's how I look at it.
And it's
okay?
a discussion.
What page are we on? I just want to follow back.
I'm on right now.
Page 6 is the town attorney.
Gotcha.
Page 6. So I can't look at the numbers and the thing, so I would appreciate if this is okay with everybody. Let's just speak out when we have a question, okay? Is it agreeable?
Yes,
okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to note that in looking at that, I mean, it took me a couple of times to keep reading to like understand what the different columns were. And I noted, we're at 84.3% of our budget used. But then I saw that there had been an adjustment of $70,000 that was added to the town attorney that I think is of note if we're talking about remaining available budget for that.
That's
and,
a good point.
And I'm wondering, and I should remember this, but I'm not recalling this specifically. Is the money that is transferred or adjusted, is that subject to appropriation? Did we vote on that amount? We did vote on that amount. Okay.
Anytime.
It's all ringing bells, but yeah, okay.
Yeah.
If there's a transfer in, this, and I don't know all the rules on that, but if it's going from one thing to another, we are at least supposed to be notified, and sometimes we're supposed to be voted on. But I remember making an adjustment to the attorney's line. But it's not supposed to be a surprise that all of a sudden money fell into a budget.
Right.
Because it doesn't actually come from the sky. So
you guys actually do vote on everything except what we call fund transfer. So within one budget, we can transfer. The mayor has the authority to transfer, and we of course can let you know of that. But anything going between departments or anything else has to be voted by the council.
And right. So I always watch those to make sure that where did it come from?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So to be clear, we looking at the year-to-date to September, or
no? This is the one.
We're in the June. We're in the June.
We're looking at the year end. Do you want to come over and look with me?
No. I have it. I just want to make sure I open the right one. I have the year-to-date to September because I thought that was where the questions first started.
Oh no! So
we're going to the reconciliation one.
We're going to the end of the year report because. Okay. This is
right.
Yeah.
No, I just want to make sure I had the right one open.
That's okay.
I have both of them available.
Yeah, and if you want to look at it,
I'm not seeing the same numbers.
If you want to look at a bigger screen, you can come over. I came from a big family.
And I could also log into the Zoom and we could screen share if you want to.
Sure. Well, this way we can see each other.
We can see each other, right? Exactly.
Others' faces. So, let's go on. So we were on labor. So I'm going to the next page. I want to go into technology. Technology, we have technology was, significantly, how I saw it, under budget, but there's an encumbrance of $40,000 for management.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
So let me just look at the detail of that account and see what that management is. I believe it is the network server that, let's see. Yeah, it says website, so accounting. So it's the website. So it must be encumbered from the work that we've been doing on the website. So we budgeted $40,000, but we hadn't spent it yet. So that must be it. We hadn't gotten the bill. Because we just redid our website through Revise. We did a whole upgraded website. So
right, but that upgrading of the website, I remember this.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Upgrading of
That's
the
website. I'm
website
sorry,
is
I might have
under
been.
the mayor's budget. And
Okay.
I actually watched that close, you know what I'm like.
All right, let me look.
Watch
Actually,
that
I'm sorry, I
closely.
take that back. It's management consulting.
Yeah.
Don't apologize.
I look at every number and I remember that was about 10 or 12,000 for the website design.
Yeah, you're right.
Because I remember thinking it should just be designed once and that 12,000 should go away. Like
So-
you shouldn't design it every year, right?
Right, no, absolutely. We just have a support cost, like
Right,
a small
exactly.
support cost. I'm sorry, I misspoke. This is actually for management consulting, and it was for a vendor called Government Connection for hyper-converged infrastructure. So I think it's our network server we upgraded. We had it, if I recall, Fernando had a grant that he had gotten several years ago and had kind of been sitting on it for quite some time because we needed to do this upgrade and maybe he needed more funding as well. But he finally did use that grant and then used this money, encumbered this money to pay, for the remainder of that project. So, and if you, if you have more details about it, you can ask him, but I'm sure that that's what it's for. It's for.
Okay, it just, when
Network
I heard the word management, it sounded like something else, like that should have been under that, but that was just a guess that I thought, oh, that sounds like something that might have been under salary and wages. Okay, tax title. Tax title, we encumbered, I'm on page 7, everyone. We encumbered, it's fine what we've spent.
Yeah.
But $13,190.02 is encumbered for that. Why would that be?
Let's see. I can see what that says. That must be the balance that we owe for tax title filing expenses, because that's what it's under. And most of the bills are to the Commonwealth of Mass and to Smith and Associates, which I think is our a company that assists us. So I think that's just an imbalanced due that she has an invoice for that we encumbered.
Okay,
So question with that.
go ahead. Just
yeah, yep. Where do the encumbrances that remain at the close of the year show up on this year's, like, does that show up somewhere on the year to date?
It shows up well, it's only on the June. It's only going to show up at the end of June because those bills then must be paid. So they don't carry, it gets paid out and they don't carry into the next year. So it doesn't show up on July or going forward. Is that what you mean? Or
are they always paid right then? I mean, it seems like there would be some that, and I see Councilor Forger shaking her head, like there must be some that are just like not payable if something doesn't come due or for one reason or another.
No, there has to be an invoice already. Like, in other words, there's already been a purchase of service or supply before June 30th. So we have gotten an invoice, or it might be I don't want to say an invoice, but we have a quote or a PO in the system. And we've purchased the item, but maybe it hasn't been delivered yet. We have had instances where things get delayed, and we can't pay for something until we receive it. So if we've already secured the cost, or we've procured the item, and we haven't paid the bill yet as of June 30th, we have to encumber that money, and then we can pay it after June 30th. So, but it's going to come out of this year. It's still going to come out of FY23.
Okay, so is that tracked anywhere going forward? And this feels like much more just understanding the way that you do your work and just trying to understand the behind the scenes. I wonder if we end up seeing those numbers, or if they're just tracked by you behind the scenes. Does that make, like, where do those numbers live? Where are they tracked?
So after this, they are not, I don't believe that they're not, they just go away after this. They close, like everything gets closed out to fund balance and going forward. So there's no, I mean, we may track it internally in the accounting office, like Angelica, when she pays them, she may, but I don't think there's any way, these don't go into any kind of future report. This is the end of the report. If they don't, by September 30th, all of our business has to be done. So if they're not paid by that, then they just, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm misspeaking. Encumbrances you can carry for the full fiscal year. So you can carry the encumbrances until the next year to be paid, but it doesn't show up in any other report. It's basically like kind of set aside in FY23.
Okay.
I just want to say that's a really good question. And this is, no, really, this is as I recall, this is the first year that you've gotten to this part of it. Is that correct?
Yes.
So every year, and I'm going to explain this not as well probably as Diana, but maybe in a different way. Every year we put so much money, we figure how much money we're going to spend, and Diana has to close out the year. So we go through every single one, and then we go through every single one. We allot so much money, and that's why I'm watching the figures to see what's left over, because that, if we don't spend it, ends up being our free cash, which we find that usually comes in like September, October. That's when we start doing those things like they're saying like, oh, we'd like to put this into here. We'd like to put this into stabilization or capital stabilization or contractual stabilization. So it's really important. It's really important to take a look at this, because this ends up making our free cash. And it's important that we're not padding anything. Not that I don't mean that in a bad way, that we're not like overestimating on something to make free cash. So we should be looking at this carefully at the end. I always think this wrap up part, it's like, I like watching the wrap up of the ball game when we win, not when we lose. But like this is an important part to, it's funny, isn't it? My dad used to shut it off when we lost. But that's a really important part, because you're like looking and going like, okay, because actually I said one year, this is very funny. One year I said, every year we have the $75,000 left over in the state, what's that little fund?
Reserve fund?
Yes, I said that out loud one year, and I thought they want that. We spent some money out of that because I said it out loud. I thought they're going to have that. They're going to fix you, Ginny. They're going to have that. They're going to keep that little thing. They're going to spend something out of that, because actually for like 99 years in a row, we had the 75,000 left over and made some free cash out of it. But then we did spend something from it, and we could have spent it from something else. Mm-hmm. But it is, in my opinion, it's very important to watch where we are at the end. So I think, although everybody thought that might be quick, I think it's really important to look at this, to go through it a page at a time. Yes. And wait a minute, Chris first. Chris was first, and then Mike. Go ahead, Chris. Chris, you're first. You go. Just sting out
first. Okay.
Yeah, you're next. Yeah.
So following along on the issue of encumbrances and everything else, I guess I'm going to ask questions because maybe they might help clarify. You've encumbered money. The product or the service has not been done does not come in until the next fiscal year. When that service is provided or the product arrives, you go ahead and you liquidate out the encumbrance to pay the bill. Question is, does that go before the council as a prior year bill to be paid?
No, because it's accounted for already in 23 when we encumbered it.
Okay. And then my next question is, it goes back to, I think, what Councilor Golub was asking is, how do we know, or how do we keep track of, or how does the administrative part of the government keep track of what's there? That's part A. And part B is, I think, what Councilor DeSorga was talking about. If the bill comes in under the amount that's encumbered, how does that money get transferred out if we've closed our books?
It's a good question.
It is a good question. So the encumbrances so they are like set up as an account, but it's still in FY23. So we are saying that we've committed that money, and the amounts that we've committed, they should be exactly correct. There shouldn't be any differences because they're based on POs or invoices or, amounts we already know. However, if for some reason we didn't get the service or product and didn't pay for it, then next year it closes out to next year, basically. Like it would go back into it would go back into the fund balance, not into the budget, not into FY24's budget, but it goes back into the fund balance next year when we close it out, because the encumbrances, as I said, can sit for a fiscal year. So that's what occurs. At the end of the year, there is a record. I'll see what we have in terms of how we record the encumbrances in our books, but there should be something that shows what the total encumbrances are. And then if there's anything remaining that gets closed out to the fund balance the next year, I think that should show in a report of some kind, but I'm not familiar with what we do here, to generate that. But to that end, it does stay, it would just close out in the following year to the fund balance.
So to that end, if there were something that were, say, like delayed by supply chain issues.
Right.
And then that goes over 1 year, is there something that has to be filed to extend into a second fiscal year?
You cannot do that. No, it doesn't, if it goes beyond that, it's just done. You would probably have to reorder or repurchase. You can't extend an encumbrance. It's just for that period of time, because it's already basically been booked to FY23. So we already are going to show that in our expenditures for 23. Right. And then if it doesn't end up happening, then it would come out basically and go back into the fund balance for next year.
Right. So that's just it. Is that in all municipalities that it's only allowed for 1 year?
Yes. Yeah. It's Mass General law.
Wow. How the hell did they get through COVID?
Can I follow up there?
Yeah. I just sing out. Really.
I just know, Mike, you had a question. I just wanted to follow up to define the fund balance. Does that just that's obvious, but I want to make sure I'm understanding. That's the money that's left over the general fund, the balance that's left over in the general fund. And at the end of the fiscal year, that goes to free cash.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it's the balance at the bottom of this report that shows we had 1.2 mil. Is that right? 1.2? Yeah. $1.2 million left. That's the remaining fund balance after the expenses for this year.
What page you on?
37, the last page.
Okay. All right.
Or the remaining expense. That's not the remaining fund balance, but that's the remaining expenses.
Okay, so I'm on page, I'm going through more slowly. I'm on page 14. The encumbered electricity solar is that we have 44,000. I remember transferring money into that solar, and we've encumbered 44,000.
Yes. I believe that's been paid. So at the end of the year, I don't know if Carol had come and spoke to you folks about GTR, which was our newest solar array. Didn't get up and running. It took 18 months before we started getting billed. So we had some bills that were from earlier in the year and that we were still trying to reconcile and pay. So Carol, we ended up having to, it's kind of a complicated story, but we had all of these credits going into the sewer to the point where it was amassing a huge amount of credit, more than we could pay for the credits, because we only had so much in the budget. So what Carol ended up doing was restructuring the Schedule Z. So she reallocated credits out. So she reallocated some of the credits back to the energy budget. So that money had to pay for those credits in the energy budget. And then the 11,000 you see is Siemens, is our Siemens performance report. So the other thing we've decided that we're going to leave that behind. We're not going to do that performance report anymore for Siemens. So Siemens did an ESCO project, which gives you a performance guarantee. So if they meet the requirements of the performance if they don't, you get a check. But now it's been like 12 years since we did the project. We've closed the library, we've closed the fire station. So every year they're just stipulating that savings to us. They're just basically saying, we made it based on what it would have been. It's not that anymore, but what it would have been, we made the savings. And they charge us like 12 grand to give us a report to say that. So Carol on her way out really wanted that to go away. So we wrote a letter and we are canceling that. So, but we keep, for whatever reason, the last couple of years, she's paid that report late. So we had to encumber it.
Okay.
It's probably way too much information.
No, it's fine. It's all good. I love, I love this. All right, on page 15.
I have two questions.
Go ahead.
Again, this is going to display my lack of financial understanding, but I got lost when you said we have lots of credits in the sewer. So
those were solar credits. So we budget in our electricity budgets now. We budget for an appropriation that we pay to Eversource or to the electricity company, but we also are paying for a substantial amount of solar credits, and those come from another vendor. That's our solar. We basically get a discount for every kilowatt hours for Eversource charging us. We get a lesser amount because we get these solar credits. So we get all these credits on the accounts from Eversource in money, and then we basically have to pay them back out at a lesser rate to the solar company, to the solar, where we're getting the solar credits from.
Oh, and then
but it took about a year for us to or 18 months after the solar development, after the array went live, for us to figure out how the credits were going to work and where they needed to go. So Carol recently in April, she went back and she redid what they call the Schedule Z, which sets out where all the credits are going to go. So instead of just going to the wastewater treatment facility, now they're going to wastewater treatment. They're going to go to some of her energy line. It's going to go to the street lights, the town yard. There's a couple other things in her energy line that she's allocated those credits to. So now some of that money to pay has to come out of her energy line. So that's that $40,000 encumbrance.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say, I didn't even know that we had Greenfield Light and Power. I just cut my electricity bill in half by signing up for, I was clearly.
Well, that's a totally different thing. That's municipal aggregation. So we're way ahead. We're like 10 years ahead.
Awesome. I was wondering, back on page 12, and maybe we talked about this during the budget season, but the phone cost for central services. Yeah.
Yes.
Why happened there?
Yeah.
Is it just they jacked up the price significantly, or what is that?
It did have something to do with our Crocker service, our telephone PBX service or something is what I understand. But I also have heard from Laura and Fernando that is the one thing they are tackling right now is our telephone system. I think we can do better.
Yeah. So thank you for any effort you're investing in that, because that's a lot of money.
So that's a lot in central services. That's all of our landlines and alarm lines, elevator alarm lines. But we haven't really in many, many years really kind of gone through and audited those lines. And for every single line, you pay a per monthly charge, whether you pick up your phone at your desk or not. And so few of us really do that now, pick up our phones at our desk. So I think we can winnow down our number of lines and then just share them. We probably only need 5 in the whole town hall, and we probably have 25 or something. So yeah, we definitely, and that's one thing, the shared copier system and the shared phone system are both on the list of things to tackle, the phones being first.
Good job.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, moving right along. I have a question on the police budget. Let's see, so there was an addition, the 47.8, I'm sure that was just, I mean, that's actually a wash with temporary, that was just an adjustment, the temporary wages plus the career incentive.
Where are you looking?
I'm on page 15.
Okay.
I'm on page 15,
I am.
under wages.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep, so
So 47.8 actually equals 33,000 plus 14.8, okay? So they just didn't use money there, right? The unused vacation, we were worried about that because people were leaving. We didn't take money from compensated absences because I know we didn't, we never got a call for that. We never had a request for transfer. Where'd that 174,809 come from?
we did take money out of compensated absences. Our policy is that what we do, let me tell you.
That requires a vote.
No, it does not. We have I'll tell you what our policy is. It's a standing policy that at the end of the year, I'll tell you what it says. Let's see, accounting procedure. We have an accounting procedure. And what it says is that transfers are normally done to the general fund from compensated absence fund at the end of the fiscal year. Throughout the fiscal year, the buyback of paid leave may also be done if the buyback payment inhibits the hiring of a critical position. The goal is to leave no deficit in the department budget that must be raised on the tax rate recap. And then we have a procedure, and it says during the year-end process, the finance director and city accountant review department overall balances after the payment of buybacks and determine the amount, if any. And then the mayor signs off, and then the transfer is done in the munis system. So, and it says the treasurer and city accountant reconcile the balances in the compensated.
So I stand corrected. If that happens during the middle of the year, but during the last part, you don't need to do that. So what does that leave? Well, I'll go forward because
okay, and I can tell you what's, if you were gonna.
Yeah, I was gonna ask what was left in compensated absences because I thought, oh, I didn't remember that happening. But, all right, so that was fine. I'm just going along to see when I remember the things. I always look at the transfers. And if anybody has any other things, the parking meter.
Can I just make sure that I understood that? And
yeah.
So did you say that this 174 was taken out of compensated absences and that that didn't need a vote of council? Am I understanding that accurately or not?
Correct. That's what I'm saying. That's a policy that is on that we had in the city that I inherited, but I just read you the policy.
Yep, you did. Okay, thank you. And is a vote, and then Councilor DeSorger said that at the middle of the year a vote is needed, but then at the end of the year a vote isn't needed.
We don't make any move, well, unless I didn't have this experience this year, but I think what the policy basically says is that we don't make any transfers until the end of the year unless there is a shortage in the budget, like the salary budget line that would keep them from hiring someone. So in other words, if like 4 people retired and it was a 5-person department and they took most of the salary as compensated absences that left not enough salary in the department for whoever's remaining, then we would do the transfer during the year. But otherwise we wait till the end of the year and we
otherwise they cover it under their operating until they can't, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
I remember.
Yeah.
All right. And so if I'm just reading these numbers correctly, $3,414,163 was appropriated to the police department, and $3,593,289.39 was spent. Is that, I'm understanding that accurately? That's a lot of numbers. I'm getting that right.
I think so. I'm sorry, I was on a different thing, so I'm not sure. I wasn't following along.
Oh, sure, that's fine. I'm looking at page 16, total police department.
Okay.
And looking at the column under original appropriation, which is about 3,400,000, and the 4th column year to date expended, which is about 3,600,000. I'm just making sure I'm understanding that first amount was appropriated and that second amount was spent.
Yes.
And I would just put in there that most of that overage was that, those retirement, the people that left that transfer from compensated absences. And we knew that was coming.
Okay. Thank you.
So just like I said, speak out. I'm going along to the parking because it's something I really didn't understand here. We never spend on salaries what we think that we're going to. In the history that I remember on salaries, 49,000 was appropriated. We actually spent 20. Okay, 20,000.
Yes, we are down a staff person in parking.
Right.
Yeah,
I realize that, but the meter serve, we appropriated 35,000 and we spent 10. The parking tickets, we appropriated 30,000. We transferred 27,383. And then we ended up spending 54. I don't remember that transfer.
Let me, what page are you on now?
I'm now on page 17, I think. 17, page 17.
And now you are referring to
the ordinary expenses under parking.
Okay.
And
under parking. How am I in dispatch? Is it after dispatch?
It's under
dispatch.
Okay, I'm in parking now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
there's contra-serve, meter serve, then there's parking meters, which we spent, it says, just see what's budgeted.
Yep.
That meter, like the one thing that I definitely understand in these ordinary expenses are uniforms. Okay. There's a lot of other things, and I often wonder about the, like how much we make out of parking as opposed to how much we spend, because it's kind of a wash, and parking is something that certainly upsets people. So I like to look at that one. If you hear a lot about very few things, but you will always hear about parking tickets in your life. And so I like to really see how much does this really cost us to give parking tickets that make people sad. Right? Okay. So I see that there's this meter serve thing that I don't really quite know what that is.
That's our parking meter service. So like we have, yeah, like we have a company that services them. We had do an upgrade to our kiosk system. It's all an electronic, it's our electronic parking meter.
Okay,
contracted services basically for parking.
That's just the kiosk. What is that parking ticket 5339 that we budgeted 30,000 for? That we transferred 27. No, we transferred 27,000 that we didn't spend on wages. We put 27,000 in that. What does it actually cost? $57,000 to make tickets?
Can I just ask? We didn't transfer that. This is after.
Yeah.
I know that these words get used, original and revised. When we're seeing the original appropriation, that's after our approved budget.
Exactly.
And then the revised budget is after intra-departmental transfers are happening, correct?
Right.
And even though it says budget revised, that's not.
Revised. And we didn't need to revise it because it was within the same thing.
Right, exactly.
We didn't need to know anything about that. But I'm like, why do parking tickets cost why do parking tickets cost $54,000? Am I missing something? Like, if they cost that much, you know what I mean? 5339?
Yeah, I'm just trying to look and see. It says parking meter materials, but it doesn't look like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong year. Okay. Well, that can't be right because it's not.
$54,000 for parking tickets?
Parking meeting.
I can see the meter service.
Oh, wait a minute. Parking tickets. For some reason, every time I click on this, it seems to be going to the line below. I must not be pointing at it directly.
And then there's meter matter. But
it keeps doing that. Parking meeting materials, that's the parking meter one, but you're talking about
I'm talking about line 5339, the actual, I actually questioned that before. And now we transferred money out of wages into that so that we could pay $54,000 for the tickets.
That's not.
Here we go.
I couldn't imagine any tickets being that much.
Okay, let me tell you what we I can look at the detail. Passport. It's all to pay Passport. So that's our service provider for our kiosks.
But we said above, we already talked about the meter serve was $35,000. So we
This
said,
must be, so I think part of it, there's contracted services like for repairs and maintenance of the stuff. That's what I was talking about. Parking tickets is so we have a company that manages the kiosks and the ticket payments and the permits and all of that stuff. It's, is it Choice? No, Choice Point. That's our solar. I can't remember the name. Well, it's Passport. And so we pay them for that. It's a service. It's a vendor basically that we pay to manage. We don't go out. I mean, we do collect the money out of the meters, but for the DPW goes out and collects that.
Oh.
But the kiosk, everything that runs through the kiosk goes to Passport, and that includes the garage. They manage the garage, the permits, all of those. So basically all of those payments were to Passport. I don't know. I don't have the answer to you. I don't have the answer on why why it was more money. It looks like it was a regular year where we just kept paying, we're paying the mobile pay, the permit service.
that doesn't make any sense.
So I don't know why it went up so much unless maybe it changed things when we didn't have an enforcement officer. This again this would be a question for the chief or the parking folks, which I'm involved in. So I will say, as far as parking goes, to kind of your bigger point, we are doing work on the parking. We did a parking study, which I'm sure And so we have that information, and we are working with economic development, with Kelly, who does the collection, with Passport and DPW to make sure that, according to our parking study, like everything kind of makes sense. Like all the the way we have the pricing structure, the way we are trying, where we're trying to get people to park, that, it makes sense. So a lot of that is being looked at and realigned. So we're going to be we're already making some physical changes up around the Hope Street area, which the neighborhood group has been meeting at. And so we've been trying to be responsive to some of those concerns. So again, I'm not exactly sure what caused the increase this year in Passport, but I do know we've had some ongoing, not issues, but just things with parking we wanted to resolve. So.
And for those that if you didn't see that, it was fascinating. They found that we charged the most amount of money for the things that were furthest away from the center of town. Did everybody hear that?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So you all knew
exactly
that.
Right.
That was fascinating.
No, that's exactly.
And the least amount of money for right in town.
Right.
And I thought, well, that makes sense. Anyway, no, I mean that I didn't mean so. It made sense to make a change there.
Yeah.
But then my question in the end will be, what if the Passport is that? I would like to know at the end. I'm just going to say this out loud. These are my questions.
Okay.
Why did that go up so much? Because that makes no sense to me.
I'll see if I can find that out.
And then, indeed, if that 5339 is for that service, for the service for the kiosks, et cetera, then what is the meter service?
Parking. Well, it says parking tickets expense. So I think this is to actually the contracted services to manage the Passport program. And I think the parking meters is to fix the meters, to replace, like if there's broken actual infrastructure.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Because it's a much smaller amount. Right. This is a huge amount. So we have a contracted service and this year we did only budget 45. Let's see where we're at this year with expending, but we seem to be honest, we're already, if you look at this year's budget, seeming to be spending more than the 45. So we need to relook at this. I'm not sure where these budgets are coming from.
Yeah, I do think it's a good thing I think it's very good to just keeping an eye on this, because what you expend on parking, which remember angers many people, and then what our revenues. I always look at that one. That's just,
I think
I get it.
It's like 150.
Yes,
we were
kind of a wash.
A little down, but yeah, no, you're not
kind of a wash. Yeah. So all right, so onward. I'm going through. Go ahead.
So I was going to ask that as well, and I think I'm not sure what the 150 was. What was the 150? Because I was going to ask, how much are we making from all the parking?
I think this year our parking receipts were like around 170 or something, but I think we had been budgeting 2 or 250. So I think they were down this year, 170,000. I don't have it right in front of me, but I'll see if I can find it. But we had been budgeting, I think, 2 or 250.
So,
And that's part of, I think we knew that we were having some difficulties with the parking, and that's why we've been trying to revisit some of these issues, especially with the garage. I think it hasn't been working as
no, it definitely hasn't.
Everyone thought it
Nothing
would.
about the garages.
Put it in the wrong place.
Let's all tell the truth now.
That's a whole different meeting, but.
You put it on a hill like this.
But there are certain things that you go, oh, this is great, you know. This is something that people, they write to you, they complain about, and
What do they exactly, like, to what end? Is it too much, or they don't, the ticketing, the fines?
the ticketing, I mean, we got some lady that was over the line and she will never come back. She was a little over the line, she will never come back. And I think, it angers people to get a parking ticket.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and you know, they're like walking back, and we actually want people to stay in town and to do this. And I always look at it and say, okay, so we're spending $150,000 or $170,000 to get in that much. And what is the other thing that would work? If you didn't have it, I would be concerned about that, like a business like the theater, you know. So I'm cognizant of that, but some towns don't have parking tickets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm hoping personally, I hope that we don't put anything in at the library. But that's just me. I think that I heard that at some point they could be charging for the library, and I'm hoping that doesn't happen. That's just my personal.
Oh, okay. So I do want to say, for the record, we did actually raise our 250 this year. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I must have been looking at an older report, but we budgeted in our receipts 250, and we did get at least the 250.
Yeah, I thought we did better than that. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but the total parking department budget, we spent parking department, the whole thing, the whole parking department.
$116.
Yeah. 160,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we make like a little under 100, but again, we need to, but I think what your points are well taken, and I think they're, you know, when we start having the discussion about, I don't know if there'll be, you know, public meetings about parking, I imagine.
I hope that there will be.
Yeah, when we start to implement the study, and some of it will come with the infrastructure improvements in downtown too, so it's gonna be a little bit of time. But we are getting, like I said, feedback like from the Hope Street neighborhood, from people that are really, you know, bumping up against some of those permit issues. We have been getting a lot of feedback, so.
So onward to dispatch. Dispatch ended up being under budget by 62,000. I don't see anywhere where we accounted for the 94,000 that we received as a grant.
Well, I wouldn't see it. I just gotta get there. You wouldn't see it here because the way that we do it is we budget in what we had been doing. We had this discussion extensively at budget time. But
yes.
We were budgeting it in the general fund budget. And then when we actually get the grant revenue, we move those expenses off to the grant. We don't do it the other way. Like, we don't put the grant revenue in this budget. And I do want to talk to you about the COPS grant.
Okay.
When we get to it. Because it is showing here somewhere, and we'll see if you can find it. Because
I don't think that we should, you know how I feel about it. I think we should actually do it like they do in Northampton. I totally do.
I think what they do, and that's a way, it's a visual, they show it visually as being part of the budget, but they don't put it in the appropriation. They show it in their budget as being part of the total. It would be just like COA has a formula grant. They have a other service grant. It would be like saying their budget, their appropriation is like 20 grand, but with their grants, their real budget is like 100 grand. That's what you want to see, I think, right? That's what you're asking. And then we can show that as a reflection in the budget. But what I'm not in favor of is charging the grant directly for the money, because we did that this year with cops because you convinced me that we would do it that way. And when we get there, I'm going to show you what happens.
Oh, I'm in trouble. I can feel it coming. I can feel it coming. But I would like to point out that we have 62,000 left. So my thing was
But some of that might have been the grant. Some of that was probably the grant.
It might have been. That was my point. I thought, I don't believe, I worry about those people whom I see on a daily basis who can't afford to stay here.
Right, no, I understand.
And so they are worried about their taxes, and I thought, we can't appropriate for money we know we're getting. But now we go on to the fire department. I remember that transfer into the fire department. I remember that they needed money from their overtime.
Yeah.
Did they take that transfer, did the 87,000, did that come out of the ambulance something?
Where did that 87 come from?
Yes, where did it come from?
It didn't it? It didn't come out of.
I don't remember it. You can just do that, can't you?
Let me look and see. I think I can look and see where it came from. Because I honestly don't remember. It was in the beginning of the year.
That was in the beginning of the year?
I feel like it was in the, was it before me or was it?
No, I think that was after.
All right, 87 transfer. Let's see.
I knew he was.
No, it was an end of the year transfer.
That's what I thought.
It was an end of the year transfer.
From,
I was one of our end of the year accounts we used health insurance. I'd have to look at the financial,
So he had, in the ambulance revenue account, that's where he thought it was going to come out of. So we'll keep going.
Okay.
Does anybody else just raise your hand, yell out, because I don't want to hug all the time.
Not like me, and it's not like just her and I are here.
No, it's good.
Fuel, I remember, so I'm on to the next page. I remember the fuel transfers. I'm looking at everybody is about on budget without anything I'm not expected. I'm going on to page 20.
Okay.
20, okay. Those weights and measures went up. Everything is getting heavier and expensive, okay? All right. That's for sure, okay?
Lighter and heavier.
Lighter and heavier, it's costing more to weigh and measure everything. That's for sure.
That was actually the Mass General Law.
I know, I remember that. Yep. The Animal Control Department.
Just ask, what is weights and measures? What is that for?
It has to do with like when you go to gasoline, like to the gas pumps, they all have to be certified to make sure they're pumping properly, giving you the right amount of gas and working correctly. And so you have to have a person that goes out and does that. It's like called the sealer or weights and measures or whatever. And they're certified. It all and also I think we have a contract with the state, and that's what went up a bit this year, our contract. They supply that service for us.
Wasn't just us.
Right, it wasn't just us, it was everybody.
Okay. Highways, ordinary expense. Okay, so now I'm on page 23.
23, okay.
Highways.
Wait, can we go back to 22?
Of course.
Just curious about the engineering in the DPW.
Yeah, good question.
That was for?
Let's see what we did with that, 41.
If I remember right, was that the middle school?
Transfer in, it was an intra-fund, a safety audit, 40,000 for a safety audit. That's what we paid, that's what we used. We transferred the money, it was an intra-fund, I think, but it was energy contracted services. We moved it into there for a safety audit, so.
Oh, you know what, I feel like I didn't give you the time I didn't give you the opportunity to do that. Did you want to look at the wages and salary? Did you want to say something about the cops grant in the middle of the police salary?
Well, no, well, it's in that, It's in, when we get to the special grant. When we
Okay.
get to the grants.
Okay, because I wanted to give you the
There's a deficit
opportunity.
there. I want to talk.
Because
show you.
if,
Yeah.
all right, so, I wanted to make sure that we, okay, I'm just keep scrolling. And materials, I'm on DPW Service Division.
And that's where they,
DPW
it seems like they moved the money.
Does the DPW have blowers and, do they have blowers and, power washers? Do they own them?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Do you know that?
I don't know.
Imagine they do.
Just curious.
I mean, when you're talking leaf blowers?
Oh, yeah, leaf, like, blowers,
yeah.
and do they have power washers?
I don't know about the power washers, but I feel like we definitely have some type of blower.
Okay, I was just curious.
They probably have power washer for like the yard, I would imagine.
Maybe,
Like,
yeah.
For equipment, I would
Yeah,
hope. I don't want to rust it out.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like they would have something. Even
All right, I can ask that. All right, so now I'm gonna keep going. We're halfway done, just so you know, we're getting there.
Sorry.
What's the matter?
That's what I just.
Something struck your funny bone. If you share it, please say so. If not, you can keep laughing about it and keep it. It's all good.
I'm just the ridiculousness. The leaf blowers. Sorry.
A lot of input on that, that's for sure. The swim area, huh? The swim area, they had transfers.
Page are you on?
Parks.
The swim area, 26, they had transfers into the swim area. Did they take that out of their own revolving? I would imagine they have a large revolving.
Probably whack.
Huh?
I think they took it out of wages. Are you talking about the,
Um,
where did it go into? The transfers? Yeah, I think it came from above, from
Okay,
wages.
all right,
I
very
think they
good.
took it out of wages and put it into expenses.
and, okay, we didn't spend all the snow and ice. I don't know why, I love looking at these.
Me too.
I could be lost in this, and I was like, I've had other things to do. All right, Council on Aging, blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna keep scrolling unless anybody has any other questions. I'm going along.
Was there a, so I was kind of expecting, and not, this isn't a bad thing, but I was expecting that when I got to the bottom of the DPW, that there would be like a total department, that there would be department totals, and I'm surprised that I'm not seeing those. Am I missing something, or is there really no overall department total happening?
Into my pain. There is no department total. It is incredibly challenging, to be honest. I can talk to Angelica about that and see if there's anything, because to be honest, when I'm putting together the budget, we total those amounts together, and it is quite a thing to have to go through each division. You have the wage section and then the expense section, and there's all these different divisions, and then they're all supposed to kind of come together into one budget. So,
I mean, if we're paying,
because they're different she's got them set up as different, basically different departments, or not departments, but divisions. So,
I would be grateful for that. I mean, if we're paying over $100,000 for this software, like I imagine that there's a way to put that line in. It would be very helpful, and I hear you already wanting that. So thank you for making.
Yeah, I think if we could, she breaks them up under 400, 438. I don't know. Maybe there is a way we can at least get the total in the report. That would really help.
That would be great.
Just totaling those. We actually got an upgrade of Munis this year, and we're just getting up to speed on the training. So we haven't even really gotten to all the bells and whistles yet. So I think there's things we can, additional things we can do, but that's one we can look at.
On our debt service, principal pay down, we budgeted 120,000 and we only paid 76,000. I'm just pointing that out. It always saves you money, right?
That was not.
To pay down on the principal.
Yeah, we had to transfer that $44,000 to pay it someplace else, though. We had to pay it on, I can't remember what we needed it for, but we ended up using it for something. So we didn't pay down 120, which we budgeted for.
I know,
We should have.
I just want to say that, that's something I'm concerned about because I've watched that one every year, just like I watched that 75,000. I watch this every year. We budget for the principal pay down, which the only reason I'm here is because I paid down on my principal. You know, like if you pay down on the principal, it saves you money over
I know.
the long run.
No,
And we
well,
never-
I wanna talk to the Ways and Means Committee that cut my pay down budget for FY '24.
That's because there was too much extra. All right.
Yeah, so anyway,
There are those
I'm
people
with
on
you.
that. There are those people like me. I'll reach out to them.
I'm with you on that. I think going, it is incredibly frustrating to me that we have $20 million in short-term debt and we budgeted, how much did we budget this year for a pay down? I don't know, but we
It's
should be
ridiculous.
budgeted. We anticipate a much larger pay down and we build that in. So I don't know,
Right.
let's talk about that. I'm with
We'll
you.
talk about that. That is one of the bane of my existence, okay?
And see, this is where you see that state qualified debt thing
Yeah,
kind
I
of
see
change
that.
too.
I know that.
That's where it
That's
goes
the high
from
school.
budget to the recap sheet.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
I get it. The state, ordinary expenses.
I think we had to use that's where we transferred it into our interest. We had to transfer that 44,000
Yeah.
because we had to pay
Right.
44.5 in interest
Like-
more.
Right.
That's
And the
fine.
interest rate, it's just like it,
Right.
like,
Right. Yes,
yeah, so-
exactly what you're saying. Yes. Why are we paying? And we could have paid a pay down instead of.
We
I know,
lost,
you're throwing money
we
away.
lost 20 cents on that.
Okay. All right, so we didn't spend everything on workers' comp, we didn't spend contributory
Yeah.
retirement, blah, blah.
Yeah, how do we do on how did we do on health insurance? Oh, yeah, so you were, yeah, so
I was right.
that's about where you guys.
That's where I plugged that, I'm just saying.
What page what page?
I'm on page, 36, they were like having,
And we used 156 of that too this year.
right. So.
So you would have been
Money out of
right.
that, I said, we always.
You were at like 700.
Yeah, I knew it. I looked back 7 or 8 years to see where we were. We over budget. We have to.
Except for this year, we didn't.
Yes, we didn't.
Let's keep that in
didn't.
mind.
No, I know that we didn't because actually, if I did a budget and I said, hey, look, the last 10 years I budgeted 100,000 for this and I only used 60,000 every year. When it came to year 11, I don't know that I would put 100,000. That's just me.
Yeah, Greenfield.
That's what we did.
Greenfield, to be frank, and I'm just sort of discovering this myself, is really an anomaly when it comes to health insurance because you have something that no other community that I've ever, I'm sure there's a handful of them in the Commonwealth, but you actually, where our health insurance is affiliated with Bay State,
Yes.
which lives in the city, and as well as, other places around us. But because of that, for our health insurance increases for the last decade, instead of being like 8 to 10 to 15% double digits, the city's been 3.5% on
I hope
average.
no one from Bay State is listening.
And that is that's like an anomaly almost. So we've done incredibly well.
Right, and that was to my point, and yet every year in the budget book, we said it's gonna go up 8 or 10%, and I said,
Right.
that's
We
not,
keep thinking it's going to.
but if it has not, it probably
Right.
is not. I'm like, history teaches you something, that's why people, I actually don't like history.
Right.
I like math.
Well,
That is why people study history, they say things repeat themselves, and so I don't like history, but it does show you something.
Yeah.
Okay, so onward, is everybody having as much fun as I am? Okay,
Ecstatic.
Only me.
I love this stuff. Okay, so now at the end of the year, we budgeted 36,000, then we budgeted 36,912.
Where are you?
Yeah, so bottom line on page 37.
Yeah.
Looks like there was
We're right on
1,218,000.
track, basically.
That's really good. That's good. Okay, so now we're going on to look at these other fun parts.
Okay, nobody yell at me
We're not, you know what,
on this next report.
there's
Why
no
should we yell at
sense,
you?
there's no sense in, we should always treat each other kindly.
Yeah.
That's what I
I'm
believe
just
in that.
teasing. But this is the end of year report.
Yes.
We did have some discussion at the budget table about, for the school. So this is what so I wanted to show you what we provide. This isn't the DESI report that I put in the last budget,
That we were so-
presentation that goes on the DESI website. But this is what we provide, and it's actually, this is the cover sheet of a long workbook that has all of these things in it. So it's just a summary sheet. I didn't include all the detail, but just to show you the depth of analysis that goes into this end of year report that is required, by DESI. So
Okay, before we time out, before we go to even look at this, I want to know, because I didn't bring my budget book. What was last year's total? I think, I want to go back to the previous page then. Okay.
yeah,
37,
yeah.
the total appropriated budget that we were collecting money for.
For
Taxable, tax.
For last year, you mean,
Yeah,
what our total
23.
budget was for 23?
Mhm.
Let me get that. It's on your, it's on a page in there. It's the recap page. Let's just
Okay.
look at that, because I don't have it right in front of me, but it
okay.
should be on that recap page, which is the last page
Okay,
here.
so I'm going to go to the last page first.
So our budget was 57,893,
57,893,
636.
890.
7,893,636.
Okay,
Is that
that's
what
fine.
you were asking me, the
Yeah.
total? Okay,
Now
so
we can
that's
go
what,
back, but I want to go back to where you were, because you were pointing something out to us that you wanted to point out. And you had done all of the work of a paper. I want to make sure that we give it.
yeah, no, and I
attention
want to
that
give a
it's-
lot of credit to Angelica, because she, is the city accountant. She puts a lot of these.
Thank you, Angelica.
But so basically, I just wanted to, there's not really any action to be taken on this report or anything. It's more for informational purposes, but I did want to show you what is the data that goes into the end of the year report. So you can see that by our estimate, the actual for FY '23, I think our estimate had been about 60% or 61% of the school budget, or the town's budget was the school. It ended up in the actuals only being 55%. And we estimate for '24, it will be 56.6. So when we do the appropriation, that's just one portion of it. And then this is the other, this is all the other ancillary costs that are in the general fund, but aren't, in the school appropriation.
Right.
They're in the other appropriations. So. And some of it is you also have to account for the revenue. So you have the chapter 70 money is
Right.
on here, like
Because
basically
it is-
everything that's accountable to the school.
Everything
on
is
here.
it is very confusing. And I look at it and I go, yes, and the state sends a whole bunch, and they should be sending us, I would hope that they would send a whole bunch more. It is, and I think we should be asking our legislators about that.
Mhm.
But you have in here all that we received from
Correct.
chapter 70.
Yes.
We can even do both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the actuals and then the estimate. So, okay, so that's the end of, so basically how I kind of look at it is the report that goes through June 30th, that's our end of the year general fund. And then this is the end of the year school, it's just another end of the year report, but it's specifically for the town in school costs.
So do they pay separately their bands? I did look at this.
They're part of our debt service in our general fund, but then we allocate for it on this end of year report. So we do have their debt service, we break it out, but it's all budgeted in our debt service. They don't have a separate, and nothing is separate. The only separate line they have is that one line for their appropriation. But in that, it doesn't include their debt service. It doesn't include any of the costs that we have in our budget.
And that short-term principal and short-term ban, that is not, no, I'm just looking at this. Is there any, the high school is not here. The high school's back on our sheet, what we're paying for the high school.
This is their portion of it. So we're paying for all their debt, the high school, whatever is left. It could just be the high school, the middle school, whatever. I don't know what is left for debt. I think it's just the high school. There could be other small capital projects though in there too, because I think this year we gave them Well, I don't, that.
No, it's 2035, the high school is going to be paid off, and I think every year it's about $1 million.
Yeah, it's like 1.4, I think.
Yep.
But this includes that debt service. It's not, it just breaks out what we're paying, the principal, the interest, all of that. But that's all still encompassed in our general fund debt. It's not, just breaks it out for the report.
And so this, and you're saying our per pupil administrative costs, the administrative costs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So
we graduated 71 children from the high school, and Gil graduated 31. Way down, both of two of them.
Yeah.
You said Gil?
Yeah, I'm a little
money
out of here.
31.
Yeah, 31 and 71.
That's all of Montague, like.
Yeah, that's all. I just think that is something that we they have a big high school. We have a big high school. It's something to be thinking.
Large buildings.
Yeah, large buildings for
a lot of infrastructure for not a lot of kids.
Yes, with both with superintendents, principals, etc. Just put that out there. Okay.
So then the next report is the combined balance sheet. So that's just the cover that shows all of the funds: general, special revenue, capital, enterprise, trust, agency.
Okay, so we're on what page are we on now?
I just had a follow-up question about this sheet.
The school one, Kathy?
And the school one? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering, can you remind me the charter school reimbursement? I'm just noticing that number was estimated at those just seem big differences in the numbers. And I'm wondering what accounts for that exactly. The 413, it was actually 550,000, and then we're estimating 482,000 this year.
Yeah. So at the end, in probably January or February, when all the numbers, we send in these numbers and they're due by October 1st into DESE, and that's what gets put into the system, and those are what our assessments are based on. But as the year goes on, they reconcile those assessments. And so back in March, we received communication from DESE that our charter and our choice assessments were going to be much higher for FY23 than what we had budgeted because of the change in their demographic. So they had more kids, more charter and choice that they hadn't accounted for in October. There's also different, depending on the special needs of those students, there's also additional costs relative to that. And some of those were those costs as well. So there was a substantial increase. I think it ended up being in total between choice and charter, it was like $300,000 more. So it's money we basically didn't plan for, that we had to pay. It's part of an assessment. So, and that's on the recap. It's not in our budget. So it basically just is money that, would have probably gone into French, but we had to raise it on the recap. Or raise it.
So I'm good. Okay. Do you have more questions on that?
Nope. No.
Okay. I'm going to ask you, Diana, to explain on page 40, just an overall way that you would have looking at this little report from page 40 to 41.
Okay.
How would you?
Is that the combined balance sheet?
Yes.
Okay.
The combined balance sheet. If you were to explain this to a lay person in simple terms, I would like you to do that if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
I actually wrote the question, how do I learn to read this?
Well, I think this is actually very difficult, which is, and I have a question. There was something in this, there was a word tailings, and I had to look that up before I came. But I would like you to explain this to someone that, if you had to explain this to a constituent or someone that knew nothing about this, how you would explain these two pages.
So the first part of it is our current cash. So that's like what we start our year with. Those are our fund balances at the outset of the year. So
Anna, I might interrupt you.
Yes, please do.
Okay, sorry, I just needed to catch up. I was like, where do I find this cash? It's right under assets.
Yes, it's right at the top of the page. So that's our starting point. Then we have the receivable. So that's all the money that we have that we're collecting for the year.
What line are you in now?
All under the general, all in that whole top section under assets where it says receivables. That's our tax receivables, our motor vehicle. That's all the revenues.
You're on page 40?
I'm on page, oh, I don't have a number, but yes, yes, I'm on page 40.
Left column under general.
Under general, basically, but it's also, there's some under special revenue and enterprise, but it basically accounts for all of our revenues that we're anticipating taking in. Then that becomes the total of your assets. Your liabilities are all of your payments that have gone out in the year. So payroll, withholdings, accounts payable. And then it also includes money that we haven't collected yet, but that we expect to collect. So our deferred revenue, it comes, it comes in as a liability because we haven't gotten it, but we expect to get it. So that ends up being our total liabilities. And then those totals, along with our fund equity, which are things that we've already reserved out of our funds, are your total liabilities and fund equity that have to match your assets, basically. It has a balance sheet, so they're supposed to balance out.
So why, I don't think I'm understanding deferred revenue. We haven't collected yet, but we expect to get it. So why would that not, when I think liabilities, I think that's money that we own, but now I'm looking at liabilities and fund equity. Why is money that we're expecting to get going under liabilities?
Well, because it's because we only count it when it's actually received, because we do things, it's kind of weird. We do things on an accrual basis, but when we do our audit, you have to do it on a cash basis. So basically, when we get to our audit, we can only count in our assets the things that we actually have, like on hand, cash on hand. So all of those other things have to be accounted for, but because we haven't received it, because it's a receivable, then it becomes, that's why it goes into the liability section. It's basically just the fundamentals of how you do a balance sheet. And tailings, do you want to explain what tailings is?
I looked it up and now I can't explain it because that was a few minutes ago. So I'm going to leave it. It kept talking about tailings in mining. And then I put tailings and municipal budget and I forget.
It's basically like uncashed checks. So it's like it's all the checks that we have written but haven't been cashed or tailings. Okay. Like we're trying to, they're basically, we expect them to come in at some point, but they're kind of hanging out there and haven't been cashed.
Okay.
So that's what tailings are.
Tailings, I like that because it didn't say that. Google didn't know that. Uncashed checks, I like that. Can I ask you, so it says in our a capital project notes payable, that's what we haven't bonded for, the 20 million?
No, we have. That's what we have bonded.
This year?
Yes.
Did we just do that?
Yes.
And what's the interest rate? About,
that one is 4, yes. That was the one we did for 4.
Just, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was our notes payable for this year.
And so, what's the total? I mean, that's just what do we have bonded for altogether?
60. Well, we have 40 in permanent and 20 in temporary, so 60 total.
Okay.
Almost 61 because we almost have 21 in ban.
I don't know if this is correct, if it's helpful to understand that deferred part more, that's not, the revenues not only deferred, the encumbrances are essentially deferred to balance that out. Is that not right? Like, because there are also things that we haven't paid yet, but wouldn't they be also like a deferred liability?
Would that go into that? No, I think that's accounted as an expenditure. So it's not, I'm trying to think where so it's counted as like accounts payable or,
So what offsets that when it actually comes in? Because I mean, I see that this is a balance as it is right now.
Yeah.
On those things that are used as a liability, even though they're going to be an asset to some degree, wouldn't that flip the script on the amounts?
Well, when we actually pay it, then it becomes the cash and then it goes in to the balance sheet. So, but I'm not sure I'm explaining, I don't think the encumbrances, it's not as clear as what you're saying to try to say where those are.
Okay.
Because that's a different, because basically we do everything on an accrual basis. But like I said, when we go to do the audit, we have to basically do it on a cash basis. So that's why your balance sheet, basically you take all those numbers and plug them in and it comes up to your balance sheet.
Okay, maybe then it's actually more confusing that because the encumbrances are something we haven't paid yet, right? We're expecting to pay, we know it's coming.
But
we've allotted the money aside for it.
Right.
But I think to Catherine's point, if we were allotting the money aside that we're going to get back, why is that in the negative portion of it? Rather than being in like.
No, well, we're not going to get it. Well, we only would get it back. We are not going to get it back. It's gone unless we don't buy the thing, but we anticipate buying the thing. So that's why we.
No, not the encumbrance part, the assets part, the deferred portions that we're saying, we expect this amount of real estate taxes.
Yeah.
But then.
And why is it deferred, you're saying, or why?
No, but why does it be, it just,
Yeah,
I understand that it seems weird that.
Right.
If you're taking the encumbrance part and saying, look, we know we have 100 grand, we know we haven't gotten the receipts yet, but we know we have
Right.
20,000 we're putting into encumbrances because we're going to have to pay it later. If you're like, well, we know we're going to get $100,000 worth of taxes, we've only gotten 80, we know we're going to get 20, we know we're going to get 20 later.
This much.
Right. So
Yeah,
it seems like a reverse commitment.
Right, it has to do with the accrual to cash basis. That's basically why you have to list it, because it's not cash on hand. So it's basically like, you're still anticipating it. So it's liability until you receive it.
So I have a question that would help all of us as we keep getting many emails about this. This year, under general, it said foreclosures and possessions, $97,772. Could you talk about that a little bit? Do you know what happened?
I don't know the details on like what makes that up, but I expect it is from tax title taking. So it is our foreclosures, things that we're anticipating to receive.
So, we're not gonna, if anybody else gets behind, we're going to do the tax title, but that we're all getting hundreds of emails on home equity.
Yeah, so I think.
Can you speak to that to the four of us? Because that might help some of us to answer questions or phone calls that we get. Could you say something to me about that?
I think one of the things that we, you're going to have a discussion tomorrow night on your city council agenda.
Yeah,
I think one thing we acknowledged that we received last week from DLS is the ability to basically take whatever, if there is any kind of tax title sale, those proceeds are going to go into an agency fund. So the money is not going to be, come back into the city coffers at this point until this is all resolved
by the government.
You'll still have more discussion tomorrow night about it, but that's one step right away that we
are doing
or would do. Absolutely. Because we feel that that's important to.
I'm not sure that that's accurate, that we are doing that. My understanding is that DOR issued a statement saying that municipalities are allowed to set up an agency fund.
Right. No, I don't mean we've done it yet. We just got the email last week that we could do it. So
that is one thing, but we would, so I just wanted to be clear, we're not yet doing that. I also want to be clear I don't think that's a full resolution to the problem, but I wanted to make sure we understand we don't yet have that agency fund.
Yeah, we don't have an agency fund set up, but I think when you talk about that tomorrow night, that's one of the things that we can discuss. But I think we should probably wait till tomorrow.
Okay, that's fine. I'm going to leave that.
It's on the agenda.
It's all fine.
Yeah.
You know what? I just saw that and I said, I'm going to just ask and see what, and that's a very valid point. Let's go on till tomorrow. Because actually, if we don't, it'll be tomorrow before we know it. Okay? All right.
Okay. So I really did want to break out. So each one of these, the balance sheet actually also has kind of a worksheet that goes with it. But I did want to provide you specifically with the special revenue fund balance detail.
Yes.
And a lot, partly because you and I have had numerous conversations about just how many of these things we have, how many
That's right.
special revenues funds we have, grants and gifts and all of that. So I did want to give you that to show you.
I want to interrupt you. Just, I'm not seeing the special revenue funds on this. And are we done with the balance sheet?
Oh, the balance sheet does show,
It's in the middle of the balance sheet.
right, it's on the second column,
got
the
it.
special revenue. So that is the detail. So what is the worksheets are the detail of that column that I've provided you. And so what I kind of wanted you to, is first of all, see how many different funds we have and, you know, kind of what the fund balance, if they have fund balances, what those fund balances are at the end of 6/30, but also to point out sort of how these are our grants and how we have to reconcile our grants because of our conversation we had about the cops hiring. So in all of these cases, you can go to the right-hand column where it says remaining deficit. And at the end of the year, we really want all that to be zero. Because if there's any deficits left in that column, they have to come off of our free cash. So they get taken off of our fund balance.
Where are the remaining, where's the section?
It's the farthest right-hand column. It says remaining deficit, 6/30.
So she's on, I would just.
I'm on
page
this-
43, right?
Yeah, I'm on page 43.
Oh.
It's after the fund balance, the detailed report.
Got it.
So I want to just kind of talk to those deficits a minute, just so you can kind of understand how things work. So we have a couple small ones like 25 cents, 38 cents, you know, I'm not worried too much about anything less than $1. But if you get to the first time you see kind of a big numbers, police outside detail, fire outside detail. So detail accounts are basically agency accounts, and the law is that when the police or fire work these details, we must pay them when they're worked. And then we must collect the money from the vendors that pay for the details, in most cases like Verizon, Eversource, or whomever. So right now, so we do a frantic job, the police clerk and people involved do frantically at the end of the year, try to get all of those details reconciled. But you can see that we are short. So if we get that money that 64,000 and that 10,000 by September 30th, we won't have to take a hit on our free cash. But anything that's remaining out there, we will have to reduce out of our free cash. And I wanted to mention.
So tell us a page so that we can really.
So then I don't know, how are you getting?
Okay, I'll show you. This is the thing. We're in this together. I'm going to show you what my computer looks like. So that, you know, really.
Where are you?
Okay, so we look at it like this.
Oh, how come mine doesn't
I don't know,
have that
but-
on it? I want
so,
that thing.
I don't know what this thing is called,
Report.
but at the bottom it will say this.
Yeah, that must be your Adobe. I don't know, mine isn't.
I have
doing
no
that.
idea.
All right, but what page? All right, so the page I want to look at is the one that has the cops. I wanted to just kind of show you. It's the cops. What page is that? The one that has the 42.
Is it
Next one.
49,
No, next one.
50, page 50.
Page 50.
Okay.
Okay, so on page 50. So on page 50, about halfway down, you see the cops hiring program. And
Okay.
you see the amount of 42,407. So that's the amount that for salaries that we actually did charge to the grant.
Okay,
And you can see how much we've received.
okay.
0. So we are hopeful that we'll get this by June 30th, but we may not. It seems unlikely that we will at this, by September 30th. We'd have to receive it by September 30th to be able to count it as receipt. And so this is an example
September 30, okay.
of why
9:30.
I have a concern about the way we did set up the cops grant, and we just are not going to do it like that for 24, because if we don't collect the money, because, you know, for whatever reasons, it's going to reduce our free cash. And so
Okay.
what I would offer for next year, and we can discuss this more as the budget becomes, solidifies, but that we do show it in the budget. So it's really clear, the total for police staffing and all of that, the information you want, but just that we don't actually use the grant line as a budget line, because then this kind of thing happens. So what would have been, in my ideal, better is if we'd had budgeted this in the appropriation, or charge this to the appropriation, and then when we receive the grant funds, we move the money off, and then we have the free cash left in the general fund. It's still there because the appropriation doesn't get spent. It goes to the grant. As it is now, instead of having that situation, which we wouldn't have had any free cash, we would have just zeroed it out, but now we're gonna get hit in our free cash. We're gonna get our free cash reduced. And when you have a deficit in your free cash, the first year you get penalized. So you lose it twice. This year we actually lose like twice that much, and then we get it back next year, providing everything, shakes out. I know that's a little confusing, but
Okay,
Go
ahead.
They double the deficit amount?
Yes, yeah, it's like, it's not doubled, but basically you're penalized. They take it off because you didn't collect it, and then it comes off again in some sense because it's not in there. Next year we would get it back, but we still get penalized. Anytime you're not supposed to deficit spend. So anytime you have a deficit, you basically get penalized from DLS. And then you get it back the following year, but not the penalized amount, just the actual amount. So
Could I make a suggestion on that so that wouldn't happen? Well, like we did, it's too late now because and it closed. Okay?
well, we're praying
That it'll come in.
that it'll come in.
You want me to call them? I'm happy to.
We've called them,
No,
and Angelica actually went to the police department and worked with them on getting the
Make sure they're done.
Some of it had to do with our login for like the way we do our, the federal government has this whole ID me account, and everybody has to get on it and get validated, and it had to do with some delays and Kelly, the treasurer, and the mayor getting their validations. It didn't have anything to do with them trying. They were trying to do it, but through the website didn't get it done, and that just delayed things. So we anticipate we'll get the money. Certainly we'll get it in the next quarter, but I don't know if we're going to get it in time to avoid the impact of free cash.
Okay.
So. Well, and then I do want to mention the next, I want to give you some good news, some great news with that little kernel of not great news. And that is, we also have had this deficit for this on the next page, 51, for the housing preservation grant. And that deficit has been carried now for, I think at least a year, I'm not sure. And we had, after many months of going back and forth with USDA had said they had given us the money. They kept saying over and over, they'd sent the money, they sent the money. We didn't have the money. Finally, this week, they determined they never sent the money. So they're going to send the money. We gave them the information, the direct deposit information. So again, I'm not sure it'll be here by September 30th, but they're very much trying to get it to us by September 30th. But the good news is we weren't sure whether we were going to be able to capture that 103, and in fact we are. So
the housing preservation.
Housing preservation, yeah. It had to do with the fact that it was a drawdown that was supposed to occur in 2019. For some reason, it didn't occur until 2022. And by that point, we had closed a bank account, and they used the old bank account information. And so that's what happened. So somehow maybe they tried to make the transfer, it didn't go through. Anyway, the point is, for 6 months, USDA swore up and down that it was our fault, that we didn't have the money, and they either sent it and got it back or never sent it in the first place. So after many months of calls and whatnot, and we got our legislators involved, MJ was involved, Amy was involved, Kelly was involved, and we finally got the money. So I'm really proud of that because I also was involved.
Thank you. Well, thank you for all your, I just want to say thank you for all your hard work and for answering all these questions.
Oh, thank you.
But And you know, I think Catherine and Chris maybe knows all the answers to these, but I'm sure you do. I mean, really, oh, your hand's up. Don't wait till I call on you. Please speak out, Chris.
She probably has more, yeah, she probably could help.
Please speak out. We can't hear you.
You're muted. You're muted.
You're on mute, Chris, you're on mute.
We can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
I have a very odd question. Did Mike leave our meeting?
He did. We have 3 people.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Did he go like
He
away?
went like that. If anybody else has to go, we have to stop.
Okay.
If I should have announced that, I would like to apologize. I think someone's.
That's okay, but, and I would love it if we, I don't want to hurry anybody, but I'd love it if we could wrap it up.
You know
because we've been
Okay, so wait a minute. What time is
hours now.
It's almost, it's kind of 7:00.
Okay, you know
We
what?
can finish up.
So I think maybe if we're not done with our questions, we're gonna save them until next month. Because if people are tired or anything, it's okay, but Catherine looks like she has a couple more.
No,
Okay.
I think
You're tired,
I support that. I think that that's important. It's late, and also
very good.
without half of us here, I feel like I'm the only counselor. Like, part of it is just for education's sake, and I would like Mike and John to be able to listen to the answers to the questions, given that they'll be on the next council probably. So I'd be happy to talk about September year to date next time. I think that's much.
So if you're all in agreement, we can continue this discussion for next week. And I apologize for not announcing when Mike waved, which was just shortly ago. So if somebody wants to make a motion, wait a minute, let me just look here first to make sure I'm not supposed to say anything else out loud. The next meeting date. Wait a minute.
So does this,
So
if
we were going to have updates, and the next and now we didn't quite finish. The next meeting would be October 17th, 2023 at 6 p.m. and in the City Hall meeting room or via Zoom. And so it's adjournment. If somebody would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I have a question first. I would just like to have it be on the record that we would discuss the year to date, and also I did have a couple of follow-up questions to the balance sheet and to the recap. So if we could, not lots, but if we could make sure that those things are on the agenda next time,
Yes.
that would be helpful.
The agenda is going to say we just didn't finish and we're going to finish this. Okay. I promise. All right.
I trust
So
you.
if
I would
anybody-
motion. I would motion to adjourn the meeting then.
Okay. Second. Okay, and all in favor? Aye. Okay,
Aye.
thank you. So this meeting is adjourned at 7:52 p.m. Thank you, everybody. It was fascinating.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Diana.